Hello and welcome to today's ServiceNow Express video blog post. Today we're going to be covering the topic of surveys in ServiceNow Express. Out of box, you may notice that you'll find under the self-service application a Take Survey module. Now when this module is clicked, it takes you to a simple example customer satisfaction survey with a number of different question types. Now, after the survey is filled out, and information is supplied, the user is then directed to a confirmation message or end screen. So let's take a look at how we can configure our own surveys, define what questions are available, and additionally figure out how to send those surveys out automatically via email and link them to existing incidents or other records that have generated that given survey. So to begin, as an administrator user, we're going to go ahead and search for survey in our application navigator. Under application configuration, we're going to find the survey module. Clicking into that is going to provide us with any surveys we've defined, the default one being the customer satisfaction survey. Let's go ahead and set up a new survey. So I'm going to do that by starting out pressing new. Now, a survey is consistent really of two primary pieces. The introduction, which displays as a user is taking the survey, and the end note, which displays after the user submits. So let's call this our Express Video Blog Survey. And in our introduction, we're going to apply information such as, welcome to the survey, please fill out the information. We'll also add an end note. And it's important to note that for both these sections, we can definitely apply branding using the HTML field type. This means you can add some corporate imagery, you can add styling that falls in with your marketing guidelines to really make the look and feel fall in line with your core business. And just like that, we can see the HTML that I've applied for the introduction and endnote have been set up. We're going to go ahead and press save because the primary piece of your survey is going to be the questions you're asking the user to fill out. Now, once you do press save on that initial survey, you're going to see three related lists. One is for the survey questions, which are the questions the users prompted. The second is for survey instances, and the third, survey responses. Now, when a user submits a survey, it's going to generate a survey instance. And each one of those questions they answer is going to generate a survey response. We'll touch into reporting on surveys at the end of the video. So let's get started defining some survey questions. So I'm going to go ahead and press new on that survey questions related list and ask my first question. Were you satisfied? We're going to go ahead and set this variable to be a numeric scale. And you can pick the minimum and maximum, and it'll provide a single radio button for each of those options. The order, lowest to highest, will represent how those survey questions are represented. I can also put a default. So I'll enter 3, and I'll press submit. Now, a very common question is linking a survey back to the incident or whatever record triggered that survey to be sent out. We simply create a new survey question that is of a text type, such as single line text. We're going to say, what record is this in response to? We're going to give it the order of 40 here. So what we're going to paste here into the default value is a tiny bit of JavaScript that will take from the URL the value that's assigned to an incident number parameter that you'll be passing, and it'll dynamically populate. So we're going to put JavaScript : rp.getParameterValue, and then in quotes, incident number. And make sure that you follow the case sensitivity. After you've entered that as the default value, I'm simply going to submit. Now the important takeaway with this is that all surveys is specific links hosted on your instance. So we can pass in attributes with that survey URL to do items such as reset the previous survey instance with this new survey instance, or pass in specific parameters from that URL, in this case, the record. And we'll take a look at that in a moment when we talk about adding these surveys to email notifications. So let's add a couple other questions. So we're going to do new survey question. We're going to go ahead and add a multiple choice, and we're going to say, how was the experience? We're going to go ahead and set this to 50. Save, because multiple choice questions have a related list of choices that you define. So we're going to say, great, text value 10. We're going to say, okay, value 5. And then we're going to say, poor, value 0. Keep in mind that the value is what you'll see when you report, and the text is what the user sees similar to the label. I'm going to go ahead and press update after setting my default value to 5. And now let's go ahead and investigate how our survey looks so far. So I'm going to go ahead and select Take Survey. We can see that there is centered on top the HTML that I had supplied. We can see that I have my numerical list here, 0 through 5 as defined, default value to 3. We can see we have my what record is in response to, which again will dynamically show how to fill out in a moment with the email notifications. And then how was the experience? Great, okay, poor. Now a common question is, by default, this multiple choice question, it is cascading vertically. And we can make that horizontal simply back in our survey view. Just come down to that survey question, press the cog, and add the field for choice direction. After adding choice direction, we can go ahead and specify, instead of down, perhaps we'd like this to go horizontally. Now we have our survey set up. The important piece is then getting that survey out to your users, which can be done in one of two manners. The first is by attaching it to an email notification. The second is by creating a module. Now, the important thing to remember is that all these surveys are, again, just URLs on your instance. So what you can go ahead and do is, one example is simply press Take Survey and note the URL that's going to be populated in your URL bar. And what it's basically going to do is take you to the survey take page, and it's going to pass in as the parameter for the survey the name of the survey you provided here. And since we're using a browser, it's going to be encoded. So instead of having spaces, you can see there's %2b, but that basically links to our survey. You'll notice that if I had replaced this with customer satisfaction survey, that I would have been brought to the customer satisfaction survey instead. So now that we have that URL that we're navigating to for our survey here, we're going to go ahead and just copy that, Control copy. We're going to head over to our email notifications. The most common use case is an email notification on record closure that sends out that survey. In a lot of businesses, however, they don't want to send out surveys for every single incident, but rather they just want to take a statistical subset. So we can call this our incident closure survey, and every 5th incident that closes. How do we do that? We simply run our notification on update when the state field changes to closed, and we're going to say that the number ends with 5 or the number ends with 0. And this way, you're basically setting up your email notification to go out at the frequency you desire. So every 5th incident that closes, we're going to go ahead and trigger this notification. Who will receive? Most likely, you're going to go ahead and you're going to send it to the caller, the user who opened that incident. And what it will contain, you're going to put in that link. So this is really the key part, where we also mentioned the passing of the parameters and the resetting of the previous instance of the survey. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to paste, and you can see that's just the hyperlink. You don't want to show your user the plain hyperlink. So we're instead going to go and put a simple piece of text. And we're going to go ahead and edit the link instead. So we're going to say, take survey. We're going to take that text, we're going to insert edit link, and in the URL, first of all, we're going to paste that URL that we had existing. But we're going to append some information after that. Then we're going to type that attribute that we had defined in that survey in that default value of the text field. If you recall, it was incident number. And we're going to set it equal to $ bracket number, close bracket. Because again, with email notifications, it'll dynamically substitute any variable you want. So you can even send in, maybe you want to send in, the assigned to field of the text name. You can go ahead and do that. Just default a parameter and set the JavaScript to take from that parameter, and then set that parameter equal to the value you want it to. Assigned to.name, assigned to.email. That way when you're reporting and you're seeing a very low survey score, you immediately know who you need to follow up with. Now, the next piece that we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add this sysparm underscore survey underscore update equals false. What it's going to do is it's going to create a new survey instance every time the user takes that survey. So if they got 5 incident surveys, they could generate 5 unique survey results. Now, on the other hand, the default value, so if you didn't pass this parameter, the default behavior of the system is that it updates true. Basically meaning for a given survey, a user will only have one response, and that's the latest response. Every time they take the survey again and submit, it basically overrides their previous response with the new results. So you can choose if you want just one survey response per person, leave it how it is. If you want to create a new survey instance every time the person takes it, you have to pass in that parameter sysparm underscore survey underscore update equals false. So now that we're passing our incident number and we're passing this survey update, we are ready to go. We can press OK. We can see I've got a take survey link here, and we can go ahead and save this. After saving it, I can test it out to make sure it works as expected. So what you're going to go ahead and see is as I click preview notification, and I'm going to preview it with incident 00062, when I go to click take survey, that incident number is automatically populated as expected. So I'm going to go ahead and press submit as well. And you can see there is my confirmation screen. So that was method A of getting those email notifications out to communicating that survey to the users. Method B again is creating a module. So I can simply come in here to basic setup, go to my applications. So maybe I want to create a new one in self-service and call it the IT satisfaction survey. So from the modules related list in the self-service, whichever application you're creating this survey link in, we're going to press new and create a new module. I'm going to call it the satisfaction survey. And we're going to change the link type to be a survey link. That's going to give us a reference field to pick our survey that we had created. Now what we also see is this survey overwrite field here. And now the action of this is identical to what we did in the email notification, appending that parameter for the survey update. So let's show you how exactly that survey update or survey overwrite works in action. First, with the default behavior of leaving it true. When it's true, and we come here and access the satisfaction survey, we're going to do our test one response where it's set to true. I'm also going to take that satisfaction survey one more time. And I'm going to say my test 2 response while it is true. And I'm going to submit. Now, when we actually head to that survey instance, we can see we only have one survey instance for this survey, even though I took it twice. And that's because it's resetting or basically updating that one survey instance with my new response results. Now, on the other hand, if I went in and for this module that we created for the satisfaction survey, and I left survey override set to false, then it's not going to be updating. It'll be inserting a second survey instance. So let me take it a third time here. Submit. And when I navigate to my survey instances, I can see that I now have 2 survey instances. So we're not updating that one record, we're creating a new one. When we talk about reporting in surveys, it's always important to think of it in the context of a question. You want to report on the specific answers for a given question in your survey. So let's take a look at some of the reports I've put together, and I recommend you put together depending on the questions you have in your instance. So when we go ahead and search for survey, you'll probably find a couple related to the default customer service survey. But let's go ahead and see that in context to this new survey we create. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up survey responses by user rating. So when you talk about reporting on surveys, this is the key concept to take away. The first piece is that those responses to surveys, they live in the survey response table. And there's multiple responses tied to a single survey instance record. So what we're doing here is we're reporting on this child survey response table. We're doing a bar chart, and we're grouping by the response. Now, usually you'd have all kinds of responses for all kinds of questions, which is why it's extremely important you always add a filter condition for a single question at a time. So in this case, I'm reporting on the response of the rating question. How would you rate the technician? And we're going to say then question is, how would you rate the technician? So I'm grouping by the response, and I'm stacking by who actually took the survey. And the reason I'm doing that is I can immediately see what level of responses we're getting, and then who is attributed to what response. So as a manager, I would come in, I would find all these low response scores, and I'd do some follow-up to increase our CSAT, try to figure out what did we do to deserve such a low response, and how can we improve that interaction going forward. Another common case in how we're going to go ahead and visualize that information is in a pie chart. So maybe we wanted to see how are we doing in terms of the overall quality. So again, the same concept. We're reporting on survey response, we're grouping by the response, and we're filtering based off a specific question. In this case, please rate the overall quality. So I can see we're getting an A in only 16% of the cases, B in 16%, a majority are giving us a C for 66%. And if you recall, earlier we touched on and we noted the text and value concept. Well, if we look in this response value B, this is the actual value. So the text, however, that got displayed on that selection is B-good. So again, be aware, in your reports, you see the actual value of that question response. Thank you for watching today's video on surveys in ServiceNow Express.